Mabuhay, this is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. By the way, do not try to adjust your monitor because, yes, I don't look like I have been, but it's not the fault of your monitor. This is a channel about marriage to a woman from the Philippines. I've been married for 9.5 years. We live here in the United States of America. Lots of people have said she would leave me a long time ago. That has not happened, and it doesn't happen to other people too. So you can still marry someone from the Philippines. You just have to have some common sense about you. And I talk a lot about that in the 1900 or so videos that I have on YouTube. Today is a little bit of a break from the Filipina topic. This is I'm going to call it, Can't I Have Girlfriends and Not Get Married? And this was a good comment that was made on YouTube. And so I want to address it here on Love Beyond the Sea. Please subscribe, and as always, leave a comment. Now, as a Christian, I have a pretty hard line stance when it comes to sex outside of marriage, which is, a big reason why you get married. And this person asked me, can't I have girlfriends and not get married? Talking about how, being alone can provide times for growth. Excuse me. And I responded this way. Good question, honestly, to me. And yes, periods of being alone are good for growth, or can be. Personally, I learned a lot about handling adversity and struggling through the many years of being single before I got married in 2015, in addition to getting closer to God. I mean, if I hadn't done that, I might not even be here today. Since God gave all men and women, mostly all men and women, sex drives, they just aren't going to last long without having sex if they're trying to just date someone with no plans to get married fairly quickly. Sex before marriage, we won't go into all the verses, but the Bible calls this fornication, something we are to avoid. In fact, in 1 Corinthians 7, it says to get married to avoid sexual sin, talking about fornication and others too. However, of course, people get married and they still commit sexual sin, but that's a whole nother issue. So that's been my position on that. Marriage is supposed to be protective against that kind of sin, sex before marriage. Why is it a sin? Well, I guess because you're taking something that doesn't belong to you. That woman's body, as well as the man's, belongs to God until he gives it to somebody else. So when he does that through a legal ceremony of marriage where you are committed and you have witnesses, then you have the right to be sexually active with another person of the opposite sex. It's just almost impossible to be single and not sexually active. Obviously, you could, it just takes one date or less than an hour to fall or fail. Same thing. It's just too easy. And God wants us to have sexual relationships in marriage. So that's just the only one. We can go into Proverbs 5. God wants us to be intoxicated with the lovemaking of our wife. God is all about sex. He invented it. He invented people. And he gets to establish the rules, which are for our own good. So, again, I waited until I could get married. It wasn't the first time I was active, but I waited a long time because I wanted to do it right this second time, because I knew it would be impossible to get right again if I fell into that trap once again. Sexual attraction is very strong, and normally we aren't getting together with someone of the opposite sex that we don't want to have sex with. I mean, it could be just as a friend, and once in a while, friendships develop into marriage, but often there is sex in there, and it's you don't deserve a woman, Filipina or Western woman at all, until you have made that commitment before God and witnesses to marry them and stay with them, because people that cohabitate, for example, or have sex outside of marriage, the higher percentage of them just simply move on when they find someone better because they aren't looking for commitment. And so my channel is all about commitment. That's why I have to talk about things that aren't very easy to hear because I am realistic. When you're married, even to the most wonderful person you think in the world, you're going to be challenged, and there'll be times you probably hate them, you're disgusted with them, and you wish you hadn't married them. And if you feel that way, I think if you're honest with me, you're going to say, yeah, that's true. I don't like to admit that, but it's true. Marriage is tough. In fact, the Bible even says in 1 Corinthians 7, Paul said if he wished all men had the ability to not get married, like he did, he had the rare gift, a gift from God, to not need intercourse. So he didn't need to marry. He was busy with, as an evangelist, like most people with the gift of singleness, they have no desire for marriage. God didn't give them that desire for marriage because he had another life planned for them to do different things for the world. But most people are just very average default position, have to have married unless you want to be frustrated to death not having intercourse. And it is frustrating because we're meant to have, to be sexually active. That's just totally normal. Sex is not a bad thing, as some people suppose it is. It's a very wonderful thing. Again, Proverbs 5, be intoxicated, drunk with the love-making of your wife. That's the way it should be. People hungering for sex and laboring, struggling outside of marriage, well, you're still going to be frustrated no matter what you try to do. You can try working the frustration off. You can try exercising the frustration off. You can try all kinds of weird, mystical things, and none of it's going to help. The only cure for burning sexually is to get married. But once you're married, the troubles kind of start. The Bible talks about marriage as producing troubles in the flesh, where the Apostle Paul said he'd just rather all men not do that. Well, it's a great thought, nice thought. It's just not realistic for most men and women. They have to get married because God expects us to not be sexually active until marriage. So what is the problem with dating and not getting married, just saying, well, I'm just going to date, have female friends, sleep with them, but not make that commitment to marriage because so many marriages go wrong and then you lose half of everything. Well, I guess I would say then just don't waste their time because, you want their body proposed to them. People that are having the most sex, by the way, as I've said in videos before, are married. Yes, married people have more sex than single people because they're married. They have somebody every day to build a life around. That's a great thing. I would say starting as soon in life as you legally can, get married. Of course, you have to have great parenting to put that desire in you, because otherwise you get to 2022 and you've already committed sexual sin, and lots of it, and then you got to kind of get over that. And that's a hard thing to do. Better get married young. I admire people that are 18 years old and getting married. I think that makes them more mature as they go through the troubles of marriage. It doesn't mean they are mature. When they get married, they certainly are not. They're going to need a lot of help from their parents and others to keep them in line, but that's okay. They're married. That's the best life, I think, rather than being single, not going to get married, have girlfriends. I just don't think we're meant to live that way. Now, if you think that's nonsense, you can leave a comment. I mean, anybody can leave a comment here, but that's my position. That's why I think it's so important. Rather than giving up on marriage, look overseas if you have to, like I did, and I'm glad I did. And not having to worry about if I'm going to have anybody to have sex with or whatever is it's nice not to have that on your mind 25 hours a day. So let me know what you think here on Love Beyond the Sea.